I realized how alone I was. In the beginning, there was still the hope that I could connect to some of the other residents. Then I had the Geroids, as misguided as that went. At least I could pretend. Then Penny. And now I realized that the man I hated this whole time was my only friend, and I had practically killed him myself. Maybe I could escape. Maybe I'd be luckier than Tom and get away in the night, travel hundreds of miles in the right direction without running out of fuel, and land in a foreign country that could send me back home. Maybe. Or I could be caught, mutilated and sent back to camp to wait for some crazy bitch to come for my organs. No, there was only one way out of here. I used the map Penny sent me to the island underground to find my way to the house in the middle of the island. To call it a house is an understatement. It was a mansion, and I came up from the tunnel to see it from the back. Its ominous sill houselet, accented by a halo of occulted sunlight. On the other side of the house, I could make out the murmur of a large gathering, the kind of low din a mob makes. I wonder if that's where all the residents had gone and why they were here. Even sneaking around to look would have been suicide. Lucky for me, a back door hung open like the giant mouth of a giant angry Geroid waiting to swallow me up. Did Tom leave this door open for me? There was no going back now. My hands hurt from the death grip I had on the axe. The house was a complete disaster. Trash covered the floor, and previously elegant furniture was smashed into pieces and pushed up against the torn wallpaper. No lights were on the gloomy flyer. The house appeared to have the same layout as the other ones they built in camp, but this was much larger. I knew where Penny would be. I had to make my way up to the third floor. The bedroom door hung slightly ajar from inside. I could hear the shuffle of movement. Through the crack I could make out two large French doors on front of the room that were open to a balcony. It looked as though Penny was about to make an announcement to the crowd like some kind of deranged dictator. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Was I really going to do this? I didn't even know what I was going to do. Run in there, chop her into tiny pieces, and try to make it back to the tunnels without anyone seeing me? There was no rational course of action left. There was just action. My arm reached the door and it cracked aside. I saw her. She was sitting at the dresser, fixing her face. Tom, dear, is that you? Did you bring that boy I told you to fetch? Did you hurt him? Her face shifted from rational person to someone who had seriously lost their mind. With the sort of gleeful malevolence found only in comic books, she turned slightly and caught my eye in her mirror. I almost fainted. Her face was falling apart. It was clear a hideous disease was eating her alive. Her eyes were wrong. One was the dark black marble you expect of a mouse, but the other was... oh shit. It was my eye! I felt dizzy and the room started to sprint. My legs were about to buckle. At the last second, I pulled myself back together. I prayed that this would end quickly. No way or the other. I stumbled on my words. I wasn't even sure what reaction I would get. Tom's dead. I killed him. Dead. Phooey, that racial. always getting into trouble. Now, where am I supposed to find the children whose favorite animal is raccoons? Maybe in Nebraska. She didn't even care. She had completely lost it. I have to kill you, Penny. I brandished my axe, as menacing as a dirty, malextruant child could muster. At this point, a shout went up from the crowd below. All eyes had turned to the drama playing out in the bedroom. Yes, dear, that's fine in a little bit. We can't keep the crowd waiting, can we? No, we can't. It's a good thing you showed up. My heart sized up. Oh God, what have I done? Tom knew what was going on here. He told me to run because he knew everyone had gathered here and it wouldn't be a long time before they started to look for me. I had a real shot, he said. He knew what was going to happen here, and it was so horrible he'd rather be dead than play any part in it. I was so focused on the hideous freak that Penny had become that I noticed her personal guard dog looming in the shadows behind me. They grabbed my arms with unnatural strength, twisting the axe from my hand. I fell harmlessly to the floor with a dull thud and stared at it like a skydiver with a faulty parachute. Come on, Billy, this will be fun. The guards dragged me down the stairs while Penny addressed the crowd from her balcony. I could hear her voice muffled through the walls of the house, but it was hard to make out complete sentences. What I could make out was this. She was very upset about her documents and journal being stolen. She didn't know who did it, but she was going to find out and I was going to help. She ordered everyone to line up. We emerged from the front of the house, the sharp sunlight making the figures before me indistinguishable and blurry until my eye had adjusted. In front of me was a row of children, mostly crying, some expressionless, some were missing legs or ears or other pieces I couldn't plainly see. They were being held against their will by their respective guard dogs. Residents of each camp watching from behind. I tried not to fall apart, but I had a terrible motion that I knew what was going to happen. Penny screamed like a banshee from the balcony. Well, Billy, would you be so kind to tell me which one of your friends stole my belongings? She didn't know. She couldn't understand that Tom betrayed her and now somebody was going to suffer for his actions. There was no time to think. It was me. I did. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. Poor brave Billy. You've already paid for your crime. Don't make me add line to your list of punishments. I knew you were in your own camp, so it couldn't have been you. I'm very busy, and I'd really like to know who sent those papers, Billy. It was Tom. Tom did it. He did everything. Please, just let them go. Penny motioned to the first child in line. The boy guard looked panicked, but he registered to do Penny's will. Belligerently, they dragged the boy, screaming, to the back of the house. Penny turned to the left of the balcony. Several minutes passed. Blood-curdled screams filled the air. The screams abruptly stopped. From inside the house, the dull thumps of someone heavily climbing the stairs could be heard. Penny returned to the balcony with her prize. She held out her arm and waved around the arm she was holding. Look, Harold's waving goodbye to all of you. Now, how about the truth this time, Billy? The crowd collectively gasped. Children immediately screamed for their own lives. I doubled over, trying to heave, but my stomach had nothing to give up. Too much. I couldn't deal with this. She was making me choose who to slaughter like livestock, and if I didn't tell her what she wanted to hear, she'd drag each one of those children behind the house. She was making a show of this so nobody would ever cross her again. Well, think careful this time, won't you? My mind was blank. We were all going to die here, cluttered by an insane monster until no one was left. Then they'd ship in a new batch of children who would go on forever.